Okay, so it wasn't turned on. I make plenty of mistakes. This is R.A. Menard Mitrova for The Way, the weekly talk. I'm going to go ahead and start over. I guess I managed to wait 5 minutes for people to show up instead of the 1 minute that I originally did. Hopefully, people have been patient and not turned the video off. I'll do better next time. Um, I wanted to give more about the Psychology of the Way. I did the last one for Psychology of the Way, and I thought I was done giving the tiniest little outline, but it wasn't even good for that. So I'm gonna expound on that, expand. Um, it's a different way of thinking in many different aspects. One of them that I've probably mentioned, at least in one way or another, is that you're in the now. So you're not obsessing about the past, you're not obsessing about the future, you're not even obsessing about now. You're just being now, you doing you. And so you do look back, you do look forward, but your primary focus is now. So it's not about the place you're leaving or the place you're going, but the place you are. And that's the place you can work. So that's the place. There's also the aspect of the safe place, the space to work, the space to be. And so there's the triple gem. So there's the teaching the truth and the community, which are meant to be refuges. Along with the community is the friendships. Buddha says that you should have friendships of people that you can relate to. And he mentions about what good friendship is and all that kind of thing. But that's a safe place, a safe space. So, and in the group, the community, you get group buy-in and group evaluation of the things that you're going through, which is very much like psychotherapy, the type of psychotherapy where they aren't so much trying to get in there and fix your issues, but to give you the space to do it yourself. The idea, the concept that people have the tools they need to do what they need to do if you can just give them a space, safe place to work and help them along. Just kind of give them a nudge every once in a while. And people do say it's a valid way of psychotherapy. They say that, what is the saying? Oh, I'll remember it later. Anyway, there's this investment that you make as you go with the teaching of Buddha if you're paying attention to it. It's the investment in a good life, and that's going to change as you go forward, but it's a concept of investment where things don't necessarily give you the payoff just now, but going forward. So it's a delayed gratification kind of concept sometimes. You might get nothing now, or at least it might seem that way. But you know what's wise, productive, and good for everybody, and you're practicing. And this investment you make, it's important to remember that generosity is part of it. And that's counterintuitive maybe, but there's much written everywhere. It's a common notion that generosity is a thing that gives to other people, but also gives to you when you're the generous one. And in that generosity, there's the letting go a little bit of the material, which is also good for you in your reconditioning of yourself. That there's sense pleasures and there's aversion, and in the teaching of Buddha, those are things that we don't want to trigger us to dictate to us. Otherwise, it's not healthy. And we want what's conductive to what's good, and we find that sense pleasures and aversions have more to do with our conditioning than we thought they did, if we really dig into that. There's the old thing about Pavlov's dogs with the ring of the bell when it's food time, and then there's no food, but he rings the bell and they just slobber all over the place. Well, you'd like to think humans are much more advanced than dogs and they don't have that kind of conditioning, but they really do. And if you pay attention, you'll find that you have been conditioned to certain things. It's true. The industry of advertisement, they delve into this quite a bit about. I don't know if they, I don't think they give it as conditioning, but they certainly are taking advantage of common conditioning when they do advertising. One thing makes you think of an associated thing or an image or a sound, brings a feeling, and they put that in for that little bit. We If we do this, we keep these things in mind, we can break down the conditioning, and then it breaks down the delusions we had about maybe things that we're chasing. So in the psychology of the way, it teaches to break down to the delusions of the things that we're chasing, the visions we have of things. Like, you imagine you're going to be in the perfect job and you're going to have so much power and authority and you're going to feel so good about it. You're going to have so much money and just going to have so much freedom to do whatever. Or you think of this dream relationship, this dream mate that you haven't found yet somehow, that is all these things that you think are perfect and is going to make you feel this way that nobody's made you feel before. And you're imagining these things, so you don't even know if they're real, but you imagine them and you convince yourself that they're real, that it's going to be like that. And you might get that perfect job and realize that it does not do what you thought it did. It doesn't make you feel that way. You don't really have the things you thought you'd have. It's not what you thought it'd be. And maybe it's the pinnacle of that industry. And for instance, people that are rich, they get richer, they become a billionaire. They have everything they possibly want. They have more money than they could possibly really spend, and they're not happy. They thought they'd be happy when they got there. And perhaps they took a little bit out of the page of Buddha when it was about the journey. It was about the accumulating of wealth. And there's no more accumulating of wealth for them. There's no meaningful wealth on the planet anymore. So what can they do now? What is it? What's life now? A lot of people get to a place where they imagined and it's not what they imagined, or they get a thing or a sensation or whatever. And if you're not chasing it in the first place, you certainly are not going to run into that dead end. You break your conditioning as you go as a force that controls you. You get to be in charge. You get to be contemplative and measured. And as you go, it improves and improves. And Sadie, sorry, the dog, they like to do what they do. Anyway, breaking conditioning, realizing what compels you, and being in more control. And not to be a control freak either, because it's the middle way that we're talking about. And I'm sorry if the microphone picks up things in the background, because it really does, even if they're very quiet. I'll try to focus here. In relation to religions of the time that Buddha was dealing with, and his teaching, the difference between the two is a lot of the difference there is today too. And a lot of people would tell you religion hasn't really changed that much. Is that we have a responsibility. It's our responsibility to know what's right, what's good, what's productive, what's wise. Not a book, not a deity, not whatever. And we can actually take responsibility for the victories that we have in life. Well, in part, anyway. At least there's not another person that we really have to thank in most cases besides ourselves, because we're the person that drove ourselves there. And when something goes bad, we're not living by remote control. Things that happen to us good are not the responsibility and the sole domain of some type of God. And when something goes wrong or we don't like it, it's not the responsibility or sole domain of some kind of devil. And in the religions that Buddha was facing, the Brahmanism and Hinduism of the time, there was a lot of thanking the gods for everything they do and giving them responsibility for your life. And you were supposed to basically give your life over to the gods or the god or whatever, and that god would look out for you and give you a great life and all this stuff. And then if things went wrong, well, it was either your fault because you're not good enough or not worshipful enough, um, not humble enough before the gods or whatever, or there's a devil, there's evil spirits that are doing this to you. And basically magic, either way, magic. And so the teaching of Buddha brings the magic out of life, and it brings more to reality. That there's universal truths, there's things you can understand, there are ways of things that are in our face all the time that we just don't notice. And if we'd pay attention, if we'd be contemplative and we'd be measured, and of course meditation has something to do with this, then we could see the places where we thought we had control, but we were really being led around by the nose. We can see places where there's triggers that trigger behaviors or emotions or whatever that shouldn't be doing that. Really realize it. We can dismantle these triggers. And I'm not saying we want to break down all of our conditioning, that we don't want to have any conditioning. You just want to have conditioning that's wise, productive, and good for everybody. And you'll find that those things align perfectly with universal truths. That it seems as if the universe is designed for this practice, for this way, for this moving forward. And as we understand better ourselves, our practice, the teachings of Buddha, you just can't help but move forward. I tell people that if you're studying and trying to apply the teachings of Buddha to your life, that you just can't avoid it. You can't avoid moving towards enlightenment. You just can't. You become a more well-adjusted person. You become more emotionally stable. You become more grounded. It just works in so many ways. So to recap what I've been talking about for about 15 minutes here is that living in the now, having safe places to evaluate, to think, to vent, investing in a good life and having generosity, talking about sense pleasures and aversion, not being things that hold you back or move you forward, and to stop chasing the ideals of things and be more in tune with the reality of things and letting things be discovered. And I guess the last thing there was the responsibility that we have, that we don't expect a God or some spirit to do things for us or live our life for us, and we don't expect that there's any devils or bad spirits that take responsibility for our shortcomings or the bad things that happen. We don't have those kinds of expectations, and we don't chase those thoughts. We break our conditioning, we recondition ourselves, we rewire the way we're thinking, and it's, who was it? Is it one of those Greek guys said, physician, heal yourself, and so it's like that. I'm pretty sure Buddha paraphrased that here and again. So as far as psychology of the way, I think I've now, between these two videos, given the smallest of outlines. But, certainly there's more. So I want the videos to be short and accessible, like I keep saying, so I'm going to cut that short there and go ahead and move to any questions that people have. And it doesn't have to be about today's talk. It can be about anything as far as the Buddhist perspective of it. So if there's any questions, you can ask, and I'm happy to share what little I have to share. I will give it a couple of minutes for people to think of what question they might have, and mention that the talks are weekly and they're live, and they cover a range of subjects that people would be interested in, whether they are Buddhist or not. And of course, Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. He just had his teaching. And then Buddhist is a word that people came up with to say, well, what we've got is not the same, but it's just as good, which is really something for someone to say, certainly. And so I'll do the talks weekly, and they get better as they go. I'm thinking each topic, I do a basic video, and then I listen to it myself, and then the next time I do that topic better, more complete, more in depth, and I don't know. I'm thinking that there should probably be in the end, a video for each week of the year for like a year long. So, and I have these written things that I've done, and I'm thinking there should be one of those for each week too. And I'm also going to do some meditation videos, and I'm thinking there should be one per week of that. And so I'm thinking at that point I would do readings of particular sutta once a week, and we're talking about having 4 different things a week then that people could be tuning into or taking a look at. Maybe that's too much. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I don't see any questions, so I'll go ahead and sign out with that. Thanks for having a listen today. This is R.A. Menard, Mitrava for Monks of the Way, doing the live talk. Thanks for listening. I hope that the truth will remove delusion the way light removes darkness. Thank you.